The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass has officially come to a close. It's a day I never thought I would see because of how far it initially seemed, but in reality, it's been a very interesting and kinda short 2 years. To essentially get the main course roster doubled for only $25 is an amazing deal, but on top of that, it actually gave us something to consistently look forward to from Nintendo during a relatively dry period in the Switch's history. So in honor of this thing finally coming to a close, I thought it'd be a fun idea to take a quick trip down memory lane to see all that the booster course has given us in the last 2 years. That, and I didn't make videos on the first 3 waves. So before we actually talk about Wave 1 and the contents of the Booster Course Pass, I think it's important we discuss the major controversy that loomed over the entirety of the Booster Course Pass. I am of course talking about the visuals. It's no surprise that this was one of the major talking points that surrounded this thing from start to finish, and of course I am no stranger to this particular topic. Since no doubt it comes up a ton in this video, I might as well address it here. When Wave 1 was first shown off, it was pretty clear that it was not up to snub with 8 Deluxe in terms of visual. The first going theory was that it had to do with the geometry of these courses not being as complex, but when people got their hands on Wave 1s and the wireframes of those courses, they found that they were just as geometrically complex as the base game. So then why do these courses look considerably worse than the base game? Well, it has something to do with something known as resources, or as most people know them as textures. Simply put, the textures, especially in the first few waves, did not have the same detail here as they did in the base game. 2 really good examples of this are Toad Circuit and Rock Mountain. When we look specifically at the grass in Toad Circuit, it's only really one solid green color with no perceived differences and hence no real perceived texture. Now, contrast that with something like Moo Moo Meadows with a grass texture consisting of multiple different colors, a variety of greens, and hence giving it a perceived texture. In terms of geometry, these two are virtually the same, but the textures makes one look so much better and the other looks so much worse. Same thing comparing the mountain textures of Rock Mountain and Shy Guy Falls. Very similar theming and concept, yet one looks leagues better than the other. Because this was something that loomed over the entirety of the Booster Course Pass, and I've made mention to it over and over and over again, this little segment I feel is needed, but since we've, covered that and we know the problem, let's go on to Wave 1. On March 18th, 2022, Wave 1 of the Booster Course Pass was officially released, and for it being the first new content, I didn't forget, added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in 5 years, it was nice to see something new at all. The main thing here was the inclusion of tour courses for the first time, and Paris Promenade and Tokyo Blur are 2 amazing courses to introduce us console goers to the world of Mario Kart Tour. They're both significantly different from each other, which would become a problem for these kinds of tracks in later waves. Paris Promenade is an amazing way to not only open Wave 1, but the entire Booster Course Pass. Since there was a good chunk of people who never played Tour, like me, any of the tracks from Tour were essentially new to a majority of players, almost like a more accessible version of the arcade Mario Kart games. I'll admit, Paris Promenade has a bit of an advantage being the first tour course we got in the Booster Course, but even 6 waves later, I still see it as a really solid course. Now, Tokyo Blur, on the other hand, is a completely different beast. In fact, it's one of those rare tour tracks that has always stood out as something different from the rest. Although, to be honest, for me, this one's always fell under the radar. I don't think it's a bad course by any means, it's just one I don't always think about right away. Now, for some strange reason, Nintendo decided to only label the city tracks as being from Tour, but we got other tracks from Mario Kart Tour that weren't necessarily city tracks and hence were not labeled as such. And an amazing example of this is one of the best courses in Wave 1, hands down, Ninja Hideaway. Now, obviously this track differs a ton from the previous 2 because it feels like an actual traditional Mario Kart track. 3 laps of the same shit, go. But the amount of depth presented here is enough to make each lap unique on its own. I don't know, I really like this course, especially because I could easily see Nintendo doing a track like this as a loose interpretation of that one level from 3D World, and now that I think about it, Mario Odyssey with the Bowser Kingdom, overall just a really fun track. Now, although Tour was the main selling point for the Booster Course Pass at the beginning, Nintendo also threw in a few fan favorite tracks, like Shroom Race! Right, to be honest, the returning courses, well, they're not that good. For me, there's 2 courses here that I really like. For someone who hasn't played Super Circuit, yeah, I know, I really like Sky Garden, mainly because it reminds me a lot of Cloud Top Cruise, which is probably my favorite course from 8. I don't know, I find it to be a really solid track, it's short and it's sweet. Now, the other returning course here I like is, hold your breath, Toad Circuit. Okay, to be fair, this one is aimed solely at nostalgia. Mario Kart 7, as you know, was the first Mario Kart game I could call my own, and having this as my first 3DS game on Christmas, you bet your ass I played the shit out of this course. I will admit though, it could look so much better, but at the same time, I guess I also don't care. But these last 2 pain me to really even mention. You have Choco Mountain. Why? Look, I understand that Choco Mountain was never really meant to be a looker in the first place, but Jesus Christ, this is almost unacceptable. And the worst part is that I actually kinda like the layout of this course, but it just doesn't look good, and even worse, I don't know how they could have fixed it. I always felt like this course was an outlier because it had all the identity of a SNES track in terms of theming, and it's the only one in Mario Kart 64 that feels this way. Now I know some of you are probably scratching your heads, and yes, the other course I have a problem with in this wave is Coconut Mall. They fucking massacred this track in terms of visuals, which to me is a major downside of it being here. In fact, I was so repulsed by it that I tried to avoid it when it first came out, and I like this course. Obviously, I've warmed up to it over the last 2 years, but it could just look so much better. Like, imagine Coconut Mall with Sunshine Airport's graphics, that would have been mind-blowing, but instead we got bright colors that seem almost like a corporate parody. It doesn't need to be bright and fantastical, it's a fucking mall. Now, Wave 1 got a pass from a lot of people because, like I said before, it was the first new Mario Kart content in like 5 years, so at this point, any Mario Kart content was good. This wave had some good tracks and features, but could also use some much needed improvements, particularly in the visual department, that we would hopefully see in the next wave. Wave 2 is weird. It's the only wave to not be previewed in a direct. Nintendo just dropped the overview of it online and then released it a week later.
What do you want? I'm here.
Wave 2, it's not good. Out of the whole Booster Course Pass, Wave 2 is by far the weakest. There's only 3 tracks here I would consider good: Waluigi Pinball, of course, Calamari Desert, and Snowland. Yeah, Snowland. For some reason, me and my friends played this track the most in a beach house in the dead of summer. Yeah, I don't get it either.
Who wants to play Snowland?
But everything else here was either really mediocre or just outright bad. Looking at you, New York Minute. Overall, it just feels like this was a step down from the previous. The visuals didn't really improve, and the tracks were just not as good. Like I said, when fucking Snowland is one of your highlights, you're doing something wrong. Now, you're probably wondering why I left Mushroom Gorge off the best courses of this wave, and, well, honestly, it could just look so much better. Don't get me wrong, I think Mushroom Gorge is a really good course in general, but here, there's just so much more to be desired. In a lot of ways, it follows the same faults of Coconut Mall and the previous wave, just not to the same extreme. On top of that, Wave 2 was the start of the decline of the tour courses. Sydney Sprint is alright, I guess, but New York Minute is just outright bad in my opinion. It has shitty graphics, a lackluster track layout, and just feels generally uninspired. There are sections of this course that feel like set pieces. I don't know why, but they do, and it does not feel as real or immersive as any other tour courses. I don't know if that's the style they were going for, but if it was, it just didn't land. Can you tell I fucking hate this course? This wave also introduced a completely new track, I think. Okay, Nintendo did not make it very clear whether Sky High Sundae was new or returning from Tour. From what I have gathered, it appeared in 8 Deluxe first and then was added to Tour soon after, which tells you all you need to know about Nintendo's confidence in it. It's alright. It's a fine course, it just feels really bland. Like, there was so much more they could have done with its concept, and this has to be said, but what the fuck is going on with those guardrails? There is no collision there, and why did they give you a speed boost? I don't know. Compared to Wave 1's Ninja Hideaway, Sky High Sundae pales in comparison.
I feel like I'm missing a course. Oh yeah, SNES Mario Circuit 3!
Do you really want me to talk about SNES Mario Circuit 3?
Understood, moving on.
On December 7th, 2022, the third wave of the booster course would be released, easily becoming the best wave we had received thus far. Now, to be honest, I was split on this wave when it was first shown off in the September Direct. Merry Mountain looked very promising.
But the fucking garden!
As you can tell, I was never really a fan of this course. I always found it kind of boring when I played it on Wii, but with its return in Wave 3, I have a newfound appreciation for it.
You can go backwards now.
I really like the fact that the booster course has done this with some courses, notably with last wave's Calamari Desert. It gives new life to an otherwise really simple track, which is really cool, and just about every other course here is an amazing addition. Okay, let's get Tour out of the way. London Loop is one of the least memorable tracks here, hell, I would probably say in the entirety of the Booster Course Pass. In fact, I completely forgot about its existence until, just about right now. It's just bland, better than New York Minute, no doubt, but at least I can remember New York Minute for how bad it was. To be forgettable in this case is just much worse. Now, Berlin Byways is a bit of a step up, not crazy good, but good enough. It still feels like other tour courses, but I can get behind this one. Also, it has one of the strangest real-world details. See, Berlin used to be home to the Berlin Wall, which famously fell in '89, and it is represented here with parts of the wall being held up by womps that fall on occasion. What the fuck? It's such a weird fucking detail with a ton of weird implications, and I'm honestly surprised that Dokudobri did not pick up on this. The only other downside here for me is Rock Mountain.
Why?
Let's be honest here, it's based solely on the graphics. In fact, it really is the only track here that is like this in this wave, which is good, but come on. The Mario Kart 7 rep, again, I wouldn't call Rock Mountain a bad track, just kind of disappointing.
Say it with me now.
Like Wave 1's Coconut Mall and Wave 2's Mushroom Gorge.
Other than Rock Mountain and London Loop, everything else here is really good. Of course, you have the aforementioned Berlin Byways, which I'll admit is more of a personal choice, and the revamped Peach Gardens, but another one that went under the radar has to be GBA's Boo Lake. Boo Lake is the long-awaited return of the Ghost Valley stages from the earlier Mario Kart games. Now, I'm amending this previous statement from the Wave 6 video to now include the Ghost Valley stages, which I'm sure everyone remembers from Wii. These stages were always really interesting, and for not seeing them since Wii, it was super cool to see this kind of track make a return. Also, the fact that half of this course is underwater is an amazing and logical evolution.
Just like Mario Kart 7!
But hands down, the major standouts are Maple Tree Way, Merry Mountain, and Mario Kart 7's Rainbow Road. All three of these courses have the best visuals out of any course in the Booster Course Pass so far, and with Merry Mountain and 7's Rainbow Road being comparable to the base game. Maple Treeway is one of the best courses ever created, and to have it back is truly something special. What's also interesting is that its inclusion blindsided many leakers, but probably the most important thing about this course is that
They brought back the half-pipes, baby!
It's funny, the half-pipes were something I was not super concerned about, like, at all, but having them back makes me realize how much I missed them. They're just so much fun, and it's not the only stage to have them either. They're also in Merry Mountain, the perfect Christmas stage. I am a huge fan of the Christmas season, and this stage embodies everything about it. From a purely thematic and visual standpoint, this course is unbelievable. And, of course, Nintendo ended off Wave 3 and the year of 2022 with Mario Kart 7's Rainbow Road. From the very start, you can already see the amazing visuals that were poured into this course. It's hands down one of the best modern Rainbow Roads due to its sheer scope and size. There was a lot of love and care that was put into this course, and it clearly shows. In fact, that's the case with a majority of the courses here in Wave 3. There was a substantial boost in quality that dwarfs the other two waves. Yes, there was a hiccup here or there, but Wave 3 offered the substantial changes we were looking for all the way back in Wave 1. So there is one thing I neglected to mention just a minute ago with Wave 3, and that's the inclusion of a little thing known as custom items, otherwise known as Hell on Earth. It's crazy to think for such a simple mode, it's never been done before, but more importantly, this was the start of Nintendo just adding random shit with every wave. The two biggest, obviously, are new characters and new courses starting with Wave 4. Most of you probably remember the fuck ton of Mii costumes and game soundtrack from the last wave. Nintendo also retooled kart stats at some point in 2023. I'm sure a lot of sweats really like that, but probably the most important thing added was the long-awaited front-facing bullet bill. And I will stand by that.
Now, I am going to discuss waves 4 through 6. If you do believe that they seem a little quicker or a little more rushed, that's probably because they are, because I've done videos on all three of these waves before. They will be in the cards, they will be in the description if you want my full opinion on it. Again, this is just an overview, but I just thought you guys should know that in case that feels a little weird. But anyway, let's go on to 2023.
When Wave 3 released, it set the bar really high for the Booster Course Pass, and Wave 4 would completely annihilate that standard when it released. However, I think it's safe to say that Wave 4 will be remembered by most for two things: Yoshi's Island and Birdo. Okay, Birdo was about who else could be brought back, maybe Funky, Wiggler, you know, good characters. Also, it wasn't on the list of predictions speculators had made for the Booster Course Pass. They'd been able to formulate and predict that we were getting new courses and kind of what those new courses would be like, but not new characters. In the grand scheme of things, characters aren't that much content-wise, but impact-wise, they're pretty big. Again, obviously Birdo was not the first or last new character coming for this thing. I mean, come on, it's fucking Birdo.
It's nothing special.
But what is special is a completely new course, Yoshi's Island. This course is amazing, and for it being the first new course we've gotten, marketed new course,
makes a difference.
It is absolutely everything I could want from a new Mario Kart track. Granted, everything from Tour and GBA were completely new for me, but Nintendo made a huge deal about this course in particular. I mean, it was designed with console in mind and hasn't been done for a few years. What's also cool is that Yoshi finally got a game-centered stage for the first time. See, Yoshi's been a mainstay in Mario Kart ever since the original Super Nintendo game, and of course we have a ton of Yoshi-themed courses, but never one actually based on the Yoshi games. And considering I love the Super Nintendo Classic, this stage is super special to me. But on top of those two really cool highs, the actual wave itself was a significant step up from even Wave 3. Typically, I would list off my favorites here, but I think it may be easier to talk about the one glaring low point. Amsterdam Drift pains me so much because it is a really good course layout, and it's just the graphics are they're just so Wave 1. I mean, I really enjoy this stage, but God, it disgusts me at the same time. But the other two tour tracks here are amazing. They're definitely both a major step up from what we had been getting. Bangkok Rush is overall just a really solid and unique course, and Singapore Speedway, as many of you know, may just be my favorite tour course, hell, one of my top favorite Mario Kart courses ever. And it doesn't stop there. Waluigi Stadium, DK Summit, and Riverside Park are all solid and worthy additions to the Booster Course Pass, and all look amazing, dare I say it, comparable to the base game. Riverside Park in particular is probably a close second for me in this wave personally.
Again, never played Super Circuit, but it's clear to me that this game was truly before its time.
Riverside Park is a simple course, but a beautiful one with a really solid yet simple concept. Drive through the mountain, go inside the mountain, and hop out the waterfall. Nothing revolutionary, but it's perfectly executed here. What's strange about this wave is that Yoshi's Island really took the spotlight, shocker, but the further you look into Wave 4, there is so much more than meets the eye. Like I said back in March, none of these are A-listers when it comes to courses, but just giving us a really solid Mario Kart experience goes a long way. And then there was DS Mario Circuit.
God damn it!
Wave 5 came out at a really weird time. See, the reason most of us enjoyed the Mario Kart coverage so much was because it actually gave us something to consistently look forward to from Nintendo. And we like Mario Kart, but having this wave in between Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 made it feel like a lot of attention was taken away from it. And to me, that's kind of the theme of the entire wave. It feels really overshadowed. More characters were brought in, Petey Piranha, Kamek, and... Okay, I think the reason I was so hyped about this was because I genuinely did not think Wiggler would make the cut, and especially not that quick in Wave 5 if he were to make the cut. If anything, I would have expected his glorious return to be in Wave 6 after all the fan-requested characters made it in, but hey, I'm happy. On top of that, we got another completely new track, an amazing GBA course, 3 amazing tour tracks, some Wii, some GameCube,
and a partridge in a pear tree.
Overall, it's very similar in the way that Wave 4 conducted itself, which in my opinion also causes people to overlook Wave 5 even more. The new course here is Squeaky Clean Sprint, which is on par, if not better than last wave's Yoshi's Island, but its major detriment is the fact that it wasn't the first. I really do feel like people overlook this course because it was not the first new course to the Booster Course Pass, which sucks because it's an amazing experience and I think gives us a true glimpse into the future of Mario Kart. Sunset Wilds was this wave's GBA remake.
Wave 4 did it better?
Honestly, this one is really up to personal preference because both look downright amazing. To me, I just like the concept of a mountain more than a Sunset West, but hey, it's a really solid addition. Now, the tour tracks fall into this weird category when being compared to Wave 4. Overall quality-wise, Wave 5 is the clear winner, and obviously, I have to reference the fact that Vancouver Velocity should have been in Wave 6 due to its winter themes.
And that's checked off.
Honestly, comparisons aside, I'm just glad that all of these courses give me a legitimate reason to come back and play them. As we saw, it started to become an issue in the earlier waves of every city track feeling the same. So the fact that we're arguing over which one is more unique and the best shows the quick 180 Nintendo made to tour tracks going into 2023. Koopa Cape is back, and Daisy Cruiser, which is another case of a stage I didn't like being given a second chance. But hands down the best surprise of the wave was the inclusion of Moonview Highway. It was not rumored, it was not speculated about, and yet here it is. It's also another case of the Booster Course Pass bringing back an old course type. Honestly, above everything else, this was probably the best aspect of Wave 5 solely because it unlocked a really obscure section of my childhood that I honestly never thought I would revisit until I did. Wave 6 is the most recent and final amendment to the Booster Course Pass. This one's pretty fresh in everyone's mind, so I'll try to keep it quick. In terms of quality, Wave 6 is the clear frontrunner. With every wave before it, there was always some little nitpick you could have, but here, it's pretty close to perfection. The tour tracks here are extremely solid, unique, and look the best out of any wave, which can be said for all the tracks here. To be able to finally get to a point where every track in a wave is comparable to the base game is so weird because it's been such a long battle. SNES Bowser Castle 3 saw the return of another classic Mario Kart track type, these being the classic flat Bowser Castle courses. Wii's Rainbow Road no doubt brought back a ton of childhood memories and rage, and strangely enough, this wave kept all of us on our toes. As I've mentioned here and in other videos before, waves 5 and 6 were dominated by the leaguers who believed they had formulated what tracks were coming and what waves they were coming in. As we are well aware, DK Mountain was the perceived underdog compared to the favorite Dino Dino Jungle, look who made the cut, and Daisy Circuit and Rosalina's Ice World were never in the cards to be included at all. Yet, like Moonview Highway, they're all here and absolutely all amazing additions. Honestly, there are no downsides to Wave 6 at all. All the tracks are phenomenal and a joy to play. To me, it feels like this wave was a true celebration of everything that had come before in the last 2 years, and I mean it when I say it, I have no gripes with this wave whatsoever. It truly is the most perfect and satisfying ending we could have asked for. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a complete overview of the last 2 years of Mario Kart. As I've said before, it's been a really interesting ride over these last 2 years, and although I bitched a lot, come on, it's fucking Mario Kart. Even at some of the booster course's lowest lows, it was still Mario Kart at the end of the day.
For me though, this thing was more than just about Mario Kart. As I said at the beginning, it gave us something to consistently look forward to from Nintendo, and with every direct, there was the guarantee that a little bit of Mario Kart was going to be shown. And for me, it kind of reminds me of Smash Ultimate in a way, and I have to compare the two because Smash Ultimate did the same thing for 3 years.
After Sora's reveal in 2021, it felt like there was a slight gap in having this constant throughout the directs. Granted, the Booster Course Pass was revealed in the following direct after Sora's reveal, but the idea of not having a Smash reveal for the first time in 3 years felt really weird, but thankfully the Booster Course would easily fill that spot. At the end of the day, the Booster Course Pass was not really needed. In fact, with Nintendo's return in 2021, everyone had predicted that Mario Kart 9 was soon coming, and as we know now, they were all wrong. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't a fan of this thing since the moment it was announced. As I've been saying, this thing has been a hell of a journey and has been something I've constantly looked forward to in every direct. Nintendo's had this cool trend recently with prolonging certain games to keep the hype going, and obviously with this coming out 4 years after 8 Deluxe, which itself was a port of a 3-year-old game at the time, Nintendo still found a way to captivate all of us and breathe new life into what will be a 10-year-old game come next year.
And with that, it seems that we could finally put the Booster Course and Mario Kart 8 in general finally to rest. Which also reminds me, I need to go. I have another anniversary to attend.